Mocha Pro 2025.5 has got some camera solver improvements. We're going to take a look at the nuances of tracking a moving object in a locked shot. In this first clip, we'll try to do an object solve of this pizza box. To start with, I would create two shape layers to track the visible parts of the pizza box. One for the top and one for the side. Then I'd align the surfaces so they match the edges of the box. Also enable tracking the perspective motion down here and perform a regular Mocha planar track. Replacing product packaging or changing a label is a pretty common VFX task. Although sometimes doing it with just a regular planar track might be enough, doing it in 3D gives you much more flexibility, allowing you to render realistic materials, reflections, and more. Great! The planar track looks good. So we can move on to the camera solver module and try doing a 3D object solve. In order to solve these two layers as a single moving object, we first need to add them into a group. Then, set both layers and the group itself to a moving object mode in the layer properties. This tells Mocha that all layers within the group belong to a single moving object. We have another great tutorial on our channel taught by Martin Brennan about grouping tracks for moving object. Check it out if you want a deeper dive. Alright, we have great planar track data, and it seems like we should be good to solve this. However, when I click solve, I get an error. But why is that? Well, we did set everything up correctly to solve the pizza box as a moving object, but there is simply no useful information to solve the camera. This is a common issue in shots with a lack of parallax and depth. If there is not enough data to triangulate from, the solver can't determine the camera motion. However, in the scene we are working on right now, the camera isn't moving at all. So instead of trying to solve the unsolvable, we can simply tell Mocha not to bother solving for the camera at all, and focus entirely on the moving object. The way to do this is by enabling the locked shot checkbox in the 3D motion parameters. That's it! Let's give it a second try. This time, we're getting a successful solve. Notice that, although we were only solving for the object, Mocha was still able to figure out the camera's focal length. If I switch to the perspective view, the solved object really does look like a pizza box with the proper orientation in the scene. The only thing that bugs me is it's floating just above the ground level, which looks a bit off. Let's fix that. Obviously, we don't have any points to align the ground or set the origin, but we can still adjust the scene using the scene transforms. Just tweak the scene position on the y-axis. Something like that would be fine. As a bonus, let's import a 3D model into the scene to show you another cool new feature of this release. I'd go with my favorite human model from SceneDice. In Mocha 2025.5, you can now snap a model to a moving object so it actually follows the tracked motion. Just select your model, click the Snap To button, then pick any point in your scene, and the model will jump into place. Adjust the scale and rotation using the object properties if needed. Reviewing shots with actual geometry attached makes much more sense than just looking at a bunch of points. It's also easier to spot any drift or jitter if there is any. Check out Christoph's tutorial on our channel to see another great example of this feature. If your object looks less like a flat box and more like a three-dimensional organic object, it's better to use PowerMesh rather than a regular Mocha planar track. For example, here I've used 4 PowerMesh layers to track the surface of the cake. As in the previous example, I grouped all the layers and set them as a moving object. Then run the solve, making sure the locked shot option is enabled. If we check the solved scene in perspective view, the mesh that we are getting really does look like a donut. However, the scene alignment is a bit off. But I can easily fix that by adjusting the scene rotation. That's much better. To give you an example of how this can be used, I saved the scene as an Alembic file and imported it into Houdini. Using the PowerMesh geometry, I scattered points over the cake's surface. Then, I created simple sphere primitives and copied them onto those points, imitating sprinkles on the cake. I also assigned a shadow catcher material to the mesh geometry and rendered it as a separate pass. With a little bit of comping in After Effects, that's what I was able to get. Hope these updates find a useful place in your toolset. Let us know what you think in the comments. My name is Elizabeth Postol for Boris Facts. Bye for now!